everyone, good evening. Welcome to Darien Library. My name is Erin, Shea. I'm the head of adult programming here, and I hope you all had a very nice summer. We haven't been having as many programs in the month of August, so I'm glad that September is here and we're ready to pick up with more educational events like tonight, but also entertaining events as well. And I would just like to briefly mention that programs at the library are made possible by our annual Friends of the Library campaign. So thank you so much for your continued support to make things like these available to the community. Tonight's presenters have been here once before to much acclaim, so we're very happy to have them back. They both have a lot of experience in the field. You're going to hear from Michael Alimo, who is a 30-year industry veteran. For the past 15 years, he has been a financial service advisor and has served clientele around Connecticut and New England. David Weyner is here as well, and following 20 years as a senior corporate executive, since 2007 he has served insurance and benefit clients around the New York tri-state area. So they are here to talk about Social Security and how to make the most of it. Please join me in welcoming them.
So I am Michael Alimo, and my mom comes to a lot of my events, and she says, you have to stop telling people you're doing this for 30 years. But how about we give Erin a big hand for allowing us to happen. So as Erin said, I've been in the financial industry for about 30 years. My company is a little bit complex in terms of finances. We do tax preparation, estate planning, wealth management, but one of the bigger things that we do that I enjoy doing is giving back to the community. And this topic, David will be up in a second. David's going to start the presentation. This topic, it just doesn't cease to amaze me because the crowds that come out for information on Social Security, they just keep getting larger and larger. Last time we were here, we had about 75 or 80 people, and I'm sure we have over 100 people in the room, so I think you're going to learn a lot. We're going to do the best we can to answer some questions, but what I mentioned to a few people here that were here earlier, a lot of these strategies and concepts, first of all, you won't learn them from Social Security. If you go on their site, they actually have some good information, and you really should utilize their site. But by law, they're not allowed to actually advise you on this. And there's a lot of good reasons behind that. I'll leave it at that. So we're going to give you a lot of information. I'm sure some of it's going to be confusing at some point. And again, we'll try to answer a few questions at the end. During the presentation, there is an evaluation sheet, and you'll have an opportunity to either write your question or ask to be contacted. And then we can be a little bit more specific with that. So with that, I'll introduce David Weyner. He'll tell you a little bit about himself, and hopefully enjoy the presentation.
Thanks. Thank you, Mike. David Weyner here. I was in the corporate world for a long while, and as Erin said earlier, about 8 years ago, broke out onto my own, specifically focusing on financial services. My specialty is along the lines of senior planning, long-term care, wealth, and asset protection. So, with that, we will move on to the presentation. As I hope all of you know, what we're here to talk about are your options with regards to Social Security, and specifically strategies to maximize your benefits. I kind of referred to this. We think Social Security is actually one of the better governmental agencies out there, but it's important that we give this disclosure as well as suggest that, as Mike said, you really can't get this information we found both formally and anecdotally from Social Security. If you go out to the office, you're not going to hear a lot of things you're going to hear tonight. What is more educational than a little history? In the early years of the Depression, almost immediately upon entering the White House, FDR was under crushing pressure to deal with the Depression, of course. obviously the worst economy we've ever seen in our history. The idea of Social Security began as an idea in the Labor Department. And the objective became, basically at FDR's instructions, to find the best approaches for providing economic security for needy Americans in dire circumstances via what had, for almost 100 years in Europe, been called, quote-unquote, social insurance. In 1935, the Act itself, which the legislation for Social Security was passed, offering benefits for the elderly, poor, widowed, and unemployment. This is a very early poster that was shown back in those days. The program, of course, as we know now, designed as a work-related system where workers would fund basically a trust of future benefits via taxes that they paid while employed. We paid while employed. The act itself was passed in August of '35. There's FDR sitting proudly. I've read some biographies of FDR. This is one of his very proudest moments. We showed this lady. This is actually my own personal thing. She's kind of a hero of mine. Her name is Frances Perkins. She was the very first female cabinet member in the president's cabinet. She's also a very great lady. She had a lot to do with Social Security, probably single-handedly the greatest amount to do with the act being passed, as well as unemployment and other very important legislation. She's a slightly scary lady, but she was a very great woman. So, as it evolved, the program, as we know now, came to provide monthly benefits designed to replace the losses of income due to retirement, disability, worst case scenario, death. Social Security is now an important source of retirement for 3 out of 5 people over the age of 65 who rely on it for up to half of their income. Estimates are that this program keeps over 40% of Americans over the age of 65 in the United States off of poverty. And Social Security, as we know, is pretty much entirely universal. 96% of all U.S. jobs currently covered in the program. This is a little Social Security timeline, and this very sweet, the last lady was a little scary. This lady is a very sweet lady. Her name was Ida Mae Fuller. She was from Ludlow, Vermont, and she was the very first recipient of a Social Security check back in 1940. The check amounted to, for a grand total of $22.54. Interestingly enough, this 65-year-old retiree had only been paying into the program for about 3 years. Absolutely, astoundingly, she broke every actuarial chart in the world in those days. In 1975, she died at the ripe age of 100, which was a very old lady in 1975. She'd only actually been paying in for 3 years. She went on to collect $25,000 in benefits over her lifetime. In 56 and 61, amendments were passed increasing the minimum eligibility age from what had been 65 since the introduction of the program down to, I should say, the lowering of the benefit level from 65 to age 62, which is still intact. First payments were made to divorced women in 1965. I have absolutely no idea why it took 12 years for Congress to pass the same for men, but it did. In 1972, Nixon signed a law providing a one-time bump of 20% to benefits. Annual COLA allowances were also introduced for the first time back in 72 that are CPI based. Just to let you know, averaging about 2.6% between these years and most recently 1.5%. Not a president you would not necessarily associate with taxes, but nevertheless, in 1983, Reagan signed the first legislation actually adding taxes to our Social Security benefits. He also introduced a program of gradual increase in the full retirement age, such that boomers that are younger boomers are the full retirement age is going to be 67. So, the funding of the program, workers' contributions to Social Security either through payroll taxes, known as FICA, or SICA if you are self-employed. The revenues deposited into 2 trust funds One, the Old Age and Survivors Fund, and the second being disability. Since introduction, more than $8.7 trillion have been paid into the trust fund, paid out more than $7.6 trillion, leaving, yes, still a balance, we'll get into this issue in a second, for future benefits. How much do workers pay? Maybe some of you know this already. We pay 6.2% of our earnings for Social Security and another 1.45% for what is basically Medicare Part A. Employers matching that amount. The total, 12.4% for Social Security and the Medicare Part A. As of this year, the maximum amount that a worker's pay may be subject to FICA tax is $117,700. Just quickly, the breakdown of the funding of Social Security, the vast majority, of course, being FICA and SECA taxes, 13% being interest on reserves, and 3%, that's Ronald Reagan again, income taxes on the benefits. In terms of payout of fund of the benefits, almost 75% for old age, disability insurance totaling 16%, and widows and orphans about 10%. If we leave you with nothing else, it is that you should write down, if you aren't already aware of this URL, a very important website, which is Social Security Administration's website. Write that down. Maybe some of you have. This is basically, it's called My Social Security, and this is the URL. A couple of years back, you may have noticed the actual paper statements for Social Security basically stopped incoming, which was on purpose. And it has saved, apparently, the government $40 million a year. Interestingly enough, there was such a backlash, mostly amongst older Americans, not so fast with the computers, so that there's now a cycle of every 5 years workers will get a paper statement. But still, this is the way to go. Write that down. Pick a username. It's very simple. It's really super user-friendly site. I strongly recommend you going on there. It is very common for us. Somebody will inevitably say, but why are you guys talking about this? There's not going to be a program anyway. Well, very respectfully, we kind of beg to differ. The Washington Post did a decent job of summing it up in this way back in January. It says, it's important to remember that Social Security does not run out of money or even go broke, even when its key trust fund is depleted by 2035. The report, that same report, said that tax income would be sufficient to pay. It's actually been updated to 75% of the scheduled benefits through 2087. Not being rude to anybody, but I don't know about you, but I'm not planning to be around in 2087. But nevertheless, not to make light of our children and grandchildren, we think the most important part is that with very minor changes to, let's say, FICA taxes, I don't mean to be causing rebellions in the room here, that the program can be easily grown again. And despite the fact that Congress and no presidents in recent years have had the nerve to address this issue, we think it is very likely, so the Post, that it will be. Little trivia, but so it's kind of hard to come up with funny, bouncy points with Social Security, but we think this is kind of funny, only because it is a positively deadly document. The official manual of the Social Security Administration is called sexily the Program Operating Manual System, aka POMS. There are 2,700 separate rules in this book. In it are thousands and thousands, we've looked at this book, of explanations of all those rules, which is to say, for this reason, we respectfully ask you not to expect us to answer every possible question we have. We can't. Okay. People do ask on occasion, how are these benefits calculated? Well, most people know that it's obviously the benefit is based on the number of years you've worked and how much you made during those years. You must have worked at least 10 years or an equivalent of 40 quarters work to be eligible for the program. When you become eligible at 62, the administration calculates your highest 35 years of earnings. This is very important. This data is then adjusted for inflation. It is then averaged to a single number, and this term is called the adjusted index monthly earnings figure. Finally, a three-part formula, which we most definitely are not going to review tonight, is applied to determine your full retirement benefit, very important term, full retirement benefit, otherwise known as your primary insurance amount.
Oh, I can't wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. You'll have a chance to. Oh, very good. So, we, to the core of what we're talking about is this slide, which is what should be considered before anybody in this room lacks benefits. These are some of the thoughts that we had. What is your full retirement age? We're going to address each of these in following slides. How long do you plan to continue to work? How will that work affect the benefits that you receive after you file for benefits? How will your benefits be taxed? How will the timing of when you file affect your benefits amount, and if you're married, your spouse's? And lastly, a very essential concept here, which is the delayed retirement credits. We'll be educating as to what this is and how they can increase your benefits. So, what is your full retirement age? It's pretty straightforward. It's really just the year in which you were born. This is me. My full retirement age is 66 and 2 months. If you were prior to that, it is very likely 66. And then, as we said before, 1960 or later, 67 is the full retirement age. And full retirement age, I should clarify, is the age at which you can receive unreduced retirement benefits. We'll clarify this more. Okay. And the question is, here, how long do you plan to continue to work? This has a very material impact on the amounts that you get from Social Security. And the question is, if you are under full retirement age, earnings from a job may reduce your Social Security benefit. We'll flesh this out in a second. If you have reached your full retirement age, it will not reduce your Social Security benefit. Earnings from a job do not reduce your benefits after you reach full retirement age. What do we mean by this? Are you under your full retirement age? Under full retirement age, typically, as we have said, between the ages 62 and 66, if you earn over $15,480 annually, you will lose $1 from every $2 you earn in terms of the benefits that you are paid. Stick with me. If you've reached full retirement age, and we think this is the single stupidest regulation in the entire cabinet, it is this, and if you could explain this to me, then I'm really interested. In the year that you reach full retirement age, typically when you turn 66, typically in your 66th year, if you are projected to earn over $41,400 annually, you will lose $1 of every $3 earned. But this is just in the year in which you turn full retirement age. We don't know why. That's the rules. Again, if you are at full retirement age or over, there is no limit in terms of earnings, in terms of this regulation. Okay, a little bit more about Social Security and taxes. As of this year, once you file and begin receiving, retirement benefits, to calculate federal taxes, you have to first add 1/2 of your total Social Security benefit amount to all your other income. This is how it impacts your taxes. Singles earning less than $25,000 and couples earning less than $32,000 pay no federal taxes on their benefits. But if you are single and your taxable income is between $25,000 and $34,000, 50% of your Social Security is subject to federal taxes. This is not the rate that you pay. This is the amount of the benefits you receive that are subject to federal taxes. Over $34,000, if you're single, 85% of your earnings are subject to taxes. If you are married and your taxable income is between 32 and 44,000, excuse me, 50% of your benefits are subject to federal taxes. Over 44, 85% are subject. This is just kind of a little slam at our dear state here. Not all states tax Social Security as part of the mix, but if you can see that tiny little state there, along with some other, usual suspects, but there we are. It's just kind of an interesting statistic that, in fact, not all states do. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn the podium back over to my colleague, Michael Alimo.
Oh, give Dave a little hand. I may actually use the microphone. I'm pretty passionate about some of this stuff. Okay, delayed retirement credits. Social Security benefits are increased by a certain percentage depending on your date of birth if delayed filing for benefits beyond full retirement age. Dave used some terminologies, and sometimes I want to make sure you understand. Do you understand what full retirement age is? You do? Okay. So they're talking about credits, and credits equal dollars, basically. The benefit increase no longer applies when you reach age 70, even if you continue to delay taking your benefit. So for most people, full retirement age 66, up till 70, they will increase your benefit. Okay? And if you look at this chart here, the increase of delayed retirement benefits, for most people in the room, but maybe not everyone, you're going to fall into this category here on the bottom. So you're looking at about 8% a year, or 2/3 of 1% per month. The reason that comes into play is you don't have to, people have been confused by looking at their statements for years thinking they have to elect at 62, 66, or 70. And that's not the case. It doesn't have to be a round year. It can be 66 and 8 months. It can be whatever you choose it to be. So they will continue to increase your benefit by 2/3 of 1% per month, or 8% a year if you fall into this camp. Okay? And when we talk a little bit later about some of the strategies, and we run these analysis for people, even to this day I'm amazed at the timing of this. So the timing will say 66 and 9 months, 68 and 3 months. So it's important to understand those delayed retirement credits are not just annually, but they're monthly. Okay, so we had a couple people here that were earlier. And so understand what David said before. At 62, I consider it a penalty. They call it a reduced amount. I say it's a penalty. But at age 70, it's a bonus. You get rewarded. So if you had a choice of receiving 75% or 132%, let's take out of the equation what I need when I retire. Which one would you rather have? This one, right? Which one do you think they want you to pick? Right. You just need to understand that. Not that this is appropriate for everyone, but understand what you're choosing here. This is why I tell people, I also told someone earlier, years ago, if you elected Social Security and you weren't happy with your decision, you could just pay it back. Now it's 12 months. Once you elect it, 12 months later, it's yours, whether you like it or not. So this is very simple. Just figure out which one you want and which one they want you to choose. Age 66 to 70, create more income while waiting. By the way, you see this 8% here? 8% a year? That doesn't include cost of living increases. So up until a couple of years ago, there was always cost of living for Social Security. And then when we had a bad recession, the government said, there is no cost of living increases. And people who were collecting Social Security got real angry. And 2 years later, they got an increase. So you potentially could be looking at 10 or 11% a year. What are spousal benefits? So David and I were working on this today. So if any of this comes off confusing, just stop me. Some of this verbiage is a little hard to get across. When spouse number one and spouse number two are both full retirement age, one of them may claim a spousal benefit which is equal to 50% of the other spouse. So we're both at age 66. One or the other can claim what's called a spousal benefit. Did everybody in the room know that? No, right? Because most people don't. This, by the way, this is the other mistake people make. Do not assume that the lower earner should go after the spouse's benefit. So if we had a couple and one was collecting $1,000 and the other one was collecting $2,000, it's not always cut and dry that the lower earner should go after the higher benefit. But that is an option that's available. It's called a spousal benefit. Okay? Spouse number one cannot collect spousal benefit prior to full retirement age. So in that first example, I told you they were both 66 years old. However, if one is 66 and the other one is 62, 3, 4, or 5, you cannot collect the spousal benefit. That's another misconception. People think, well, yeah, my spouse is at full retirement age. I can get half his benefit. That's not exactly true. And here's what we were working on today. So technically, what Social Security calls it, it's called a deeming benefit. So spouse number one cannot collect the benefit prior to full retirement age. What can be done is that spouse number one would file for their own benefit based on age 62, 3, 4, or 5. Plus be paid what's called a deeming benefit if it applied. So here's the example. Spouse number two's benefit at full retirement is $2,000. So half of that, if it were a spousal benefit, would be worth $1,000. Spouse's number one benefit prior to full retirement age is $500. The deeming benefit would be $500. So what Social Security does is says, okay, spouse number one claimed their benefit because they're not full retirement age and they can't collect the spousal benefit. So they would turn on their benefit, and if the difference between 50% of the spouse's benefit and theirs, if there's a difference, they will pay the difference. So what this is stating is the total benefit for spouse number one would be their own benefit, $500, plus the $500 deeming benefit, bringing them back up to the $1,000. I know this is complicated. This sounds like a spousal benefit, but it's not. It does get you to 50%, like we were talking about here, but it's calculated differently.
So do they get the deeming benefit when they hit the FRD?
See, now that's what we're talking about here. We're going to get onto it a little bit. But what happens is once you elect this strategy without the full retirement age, this total benefit becomes your benefit for life. You lose the option of increasing your benefit. Why? Because you elected it prior to full retirement age. So they'll still make you whole. They'll give you the concept that you're getting a spousal benefit, and the reality is this will be your permanent benefit. Your benefit will never grow once you elect this. Now sometimes, believe it or not, this is appropriate. Why? Well, because this person's benefit is never going to get to $1,000 anyway. So there's reasons to do it. I'm not saying to do it, but there's reasons why you would apply that. Okay? So understand, spousal benefit applies when you're both full retirement age. That's different. This is comparable to it, except this is your benefit for life. How's that, Dave? Good? Okay. We went back and forth on this all day. Okay, for married couples, there's actually 728 different combinations or possibilities. Now you know why they're not going to tell you that? To be fair to them, because I do think they're a good agency, they couldn't. There's just so many people that are applying. With all the baby boomers coming of age, would they possibly be able to explain this to you? Never. And they don't know enough about you. You know, some of the pitfalls to these strategies, these delay tactics are, it's got to be appropriate. You don't want to go broke waiting to beat Social Security at their own game. So.
Do they have a calculator, like that you could literally put again your spouse's birthday, your birthday, and it would say, oh, ding, 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 this is the.
No, but we do.
700.
No. And the reason being is, you know, not to get too long-winded, but it might not be right for you. You know, I can show you strategies through these analysis. It doesn't mean it's right for you. It's just going to show you how to maximize your Social Security benefit. And we're just here to tell you there are ways to maximize. When you see some of the examples, it'll make sense to you. There's always ways to get more out of Social Security, but it might not be appropriate for you. That's why they won't do it. Let me show you some of the examples. It'll help you. Some of the delayed strategies: file and suspend restricted applications. So file and suspend and restricted applications. A filing strategy for married couples. So you and your spouse are both at full retirement age, like we were just talking about. Spouse number one files for his Social Security retirement benefits, then immediately suspends. So that sounds strange. You go in the Social Security office, I want my benefit, but stop it. They know, but they know what you're doing. This allows payments through age, then immediately suspend his or her benefit through age 70 or sooner. This is something else we worked on today. People assume because they suspend their benefit, they should wait to age 70. That's not always the case either. It sounds like it makes sense, but I can assure you it's not always the case. So once you suspend it, it could be to 68, 69, 70. There's a lot of reasons behind it. Could be tax, could be income. We can get into that at another point, but at least till age 70 or sooner. At spouse's number one age 70 or sooner, spouse number one collects his or her own benefit, which grew 8% annually, plus the COLAs that I was talking about.
What's COLA?
A cost of living, I'm sorry. Yes, sometimes we use terminology. It's a cost of living, which is tied to the consumer price index. Spouse number two, full retirement age, files for his or her own spousal benefits. Remember I explained the spousal benefit? That's because they're both at full retirement age, so they can technically go after what's called the spousal benefit. Then it's calculated at 50% of the other person's benefit. Spouse number two also files a restricted application. Why? So they can allow their benefit to grow at 8%, plus the cost of living. Confusing, right?
Why don't you just wait till you're 70 for suspending it?
It doesn't always work that way.
Why?
I would have to spend about a half hour with you. Seriously. If you fill out the form, we'll talk about it, but it's not always age 70. I promise you it's not. It has to do with age, it has to do with earnings, it has to do with the different amounts of the benefits. There's a lot that goes in the calculation.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Is your scenario here, are you compounding these two scenarios, or are these standalone two scenarios?
Well, the way we explain this that people don't understand is this is free money. So you're both at full retirement age. Can you both delay? Sure you can. But they're saying, why don't you take a spousal benefit? Why don't you both delay, but one of you claim half of the other person's benefit?
What I'm asking is, can I both delay? I claim.
No, you can't
first,
both. No,
she
no.
claims mine.
No.
Rats. Okay, thought I had.
And that's where the calculations come in. It's not always the higher earner that you want to go after, they have the benefit. But that's something that people don't understand. You can claim half of your spouse's benefit and both delay your retirement credits. I could take one more question, okay?
Okay, and this is assuming, let's say both spouses worked.
Yep.
And so this spouse number two is getting 50% of the husband's whoever benefit, not her own benefit.
Yep.
So it's not her own, and then when would they take their own benefit? Because I'm talking myself.
I can't, only because, again, these situations are so different for everyone. I can't answer that.
But they'll be able to whenever they
Yeah,
want to.
it's called switchback. You would switch back to your benefit. Okay, I'm going to continue, and then I'll pick up more questions.
Is that an either-or choice? You either get the spousal benefit or your benefit? You don't get your benefit plus the spousal?
Well, if you take the spousal benefit, you're delaying yours.
But when you do start taking, are you taking both, or are you just getting one or the other?
No, you're just getting the spousal benefit, and you're delaying yours and your spouse's benefits till whatever age is appropriate.
So if you're both working and you both claim you get two different Social Security
Mhm.
Like I'm single.
Yeah, who
I'm married.
suspends? The question is, who
But what if we
suspends?
both don't? So he gets his and I get mine and we're married.
Why wouldn't you want half of his while you're delaying
Why?
yours?
Sure. I
Right.
never, well, I never knew that, so.
Right, well, that's what you came for.
Okay.
Okay.
Single people.
Age 70 or sooner, the second person discontinues, and the other terminology is switches back. So while I'm on this spousal benefit, at any point I can go back to mine. I'm earning those 8% delayed retirement credits. At any point you can go back to your own. Okay, now for individuals, because not everybody's married, or some people are divorced. Individuals, there is a little bit of a strategy here as well. If a single person at full retirement age decides to delay filing till age 70, he or she may also do what's called file and suspend. Well, why would I do that, right? I can't collect half of my own benefit. This allows the following. In a case where an individual changes his mind between that 66 and 70, they can actually cancel that file and suspend and switch back to the immediate benefit based on when they filed. So let me explain that. Okay, let me explain that. Okay, hold back that up a second. So, I'm 66 years old and I'm single and I file and suspend. So I put my own benefit on hold and I'm delaying with those 8% credits. And then at 68, I need money. Something happened, a medical emergency, whatever it might be. Well, what happens is the individual would actually receive a lump sum back from Social Security. So let's say I did a restricted application on myself, I filed and suspended, and at age 68 I said, this was a mistake, I need money. Social Security will actually give me my money from 66 to 68 that I suspended. The downfall, they'll calculate my Social Security benefit back to when I was age 66. So let's say you're single and you don't need the benefit, you don't want to pay more taxes, you don't need the income right now. You can actually do something like this, and if you need the money, you can stop the suspension of your benefits and get your, claim all the money back, they'll pay you. Okay, oh, I'm sorry, this is important. If you did not file and suspend, in doing so, the individual receives a lump sum. Okay. If the individual had never did the file and suspend at full retirement age, Social Security caps the lump sum they'll pay out to 6 months. So I didn't file and suspend, but I want to go back to my benefit. Social Security is only going to pay me 6 months worth. If I did the file and suspend, and I did it for 3 years, they're going to pay me back that money for 3 years.
So the upshot of that is that anybody who's single should do a file and suspended FRA.
Unless you need the money.
And then if they want to, they can wait till 70.
Yeah, because you're delaying it anyway, right? If you didn't need it at FRA, might
Right,
as well file and suspend. Gives
right.
you a little backup if you need a lump sum of money.
Thank you.
Yep. An example is to be valuable. I kind of touched on this, but basically you have a person who did the file and suspend individually and at age 69 diagnosed with cancer. Technically, you could be looking at $100,000 back over 3 years, depending on how much your benefit was. So that gives you an example on where it might be appropriate. Okay, this is important too. Retroactive lump sums will be subject to income tax, right? Back to that earnings test. But I tell people, if you made money, why are you afraid to pay taxes?
Do you have a couple where a spouse, when he reaches full retirement age, does file and suspend, and then the second spouse does spousal benefits?
Depends on the age disparity. You want to be at full retirement age. Your marriage, okay, so let's talk a little bit about divorce. And we actually have a handout here for anyone who's divorced. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but I can give you some information on it. Your marriage must have lasted 10 years or longer. If your divorced ex-spouse has not yet filed for Social Security benefits, you have to have been divorced for 2 years. So you can actually claim benefits on your divorcee. You can file for divorce spousal benefit even if your ex-spouse is remarried. If you're unmarried, then stay unmarried. And if you're both 62 or older. if divorce benefits via the ex is more than the sum you'd receive for your own work. So in other words, you can't qualify for $1,200 and go for the divorce benefit, it's $1,000. So the benefit has to be higher than what your own benefit is. At full retirement age, your divorce benefit equals 1/2 of the spouse's full retirement age, kind of like everything else at full retirement age. You're collecting divorce benefits on your ex, never impacts your ex, they never even know about it.
Oh, it has to be 10 years.
10 years or more and divorced for 2 years. But they never even know about it, so you can actually collect on your ex. So if you're not married, the concept is, I'm not married, how do I use these strategies? You can collect it on your ex.
Do they have to work at least 10 years as well?
Everybody does.
Everybody.
Yeah. 40 quarters, 10 years. It doesn't have to be consecutive, but 40 quarters or 10 years. It can be broken up over a period of time. If you file for divorce spouse before full retirement age, that sum will remain your lifetime benefit. So kind of like the strategies I showed you earlier, if anything you do prior to full retirement age, it's going to become your permanent benefit. And again, for, let's say, a woman that was home for 30 years and got divorced, you barely worked, you're better off with half of that. So, if you file a full retirement age or divorce benefits on your ex sum, you may file a restricted application on your own benefits as well, which grow to age 70. Some facts about survivor spousal benefits. If you're at full retirement age, spousal benefit equals 100% of what your spouse was receiving or would have qualified for at death. So that's at full retirement age, again, back to full retirement age. So I can collect on a spouse who had predeceased me, even if they didn't make it to age 62 or whatever the case is. I'm going to get 100% of that if I wait to full retirement age. Divorced spouse can also take 100% of survivor benefit if their ex dies first. If you're receiving survivor benefits and you're also eligible for your own higher retirement benefit, you can switch from survivors to your own benefit as early as 62 or as late as 70. So very similar with the file and suspend things, except as a survivor you can go a little bit earlier. You can always switch back to your own benefit. Again, it's a way of delaying your credits. Okay, let's go over a couple of the case studies that we have for you. James and Jane Smith. This is actually a real case study, but their name is not Smith. So you can understand where this comes into real life. James is currently age 61. Social Security benefits would be $2,500 at 66, which is what? Make sure you guys are paying attention. What's 66? Right. Good. At 62, his benefit would be $1,875. There's that penalty. His wife is currently 60. Her benefits would be $2,100 at full retirement age. At 62, she's $1,575. They want to know how to maximize their income and whether to take it at age 62. What I tell people, by the way, is so important about this is if you need the benefit, you could forget all this. And that applies to a lot of people. They need their Social Security benefit. So these strategies are great, but if you're going to retire at a certain point and you need that income, take it. Doesn't mean you have to take it at 62. Remember, you can take it at any time. This you can't see well, obviously. And what we do with these analysis is we'll show you by using these delay tactics that basically you're going to create a gap in income. So depending on, another thing that comes into play is what are your needs? You know, if you use some of these strategies, here's a gap in income right here. What do you do about it? That's why it's not appropriate for everyone. Here's a little bit of the explanation that comes out of the report. Basically by using the strategy, now understand that these strategies are based on life expectancy. You have to base it off of something. So based on life expectancy, they can maximize Social Security with $990,000 in benefits, or they could take it early at age 68.
That's total benefits over the full span of time.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can show you actually if one person doesn't make it to life expectancy, how long the other person needs to make it for it to be profitable. It's a $122,000 difference. So for most people, that's a lot of money. Second example, Tom and Nancy Jones. Tom's 66 at his full retirement age. He's looking at $2,000. Nancy's 64. full retirement age, she's looking at 1,000. In terms of maximizing their benefits, they're considering delaying and filing benefits. You're going to see a chart here that'll help you understand this a little bit better. Since he's at full retirement age already, he's going to file for his benefit and then suspend it. So remember, he's going in, start my benefit, stop it. In his case, he's going to wait till age 70. Nancy's now 64. She's going to file a restricted application when she reaches what? Full retirement age. Why? If she does it before, we're back to that deeming benefit, remember? So she wants, if she can, she wants to wait to full retirement age. This allows her to get 50% of his from 66 to 70. So even when he goes on at 70 to take his full benefit, she's still getting the spousal benefit up till she's 70 years old. That's why I told you age has something to do with it too.
Does she get the spousal after 70?
No, it stops. But he's past 70 at that point, she's still getting it though. At 70, she switches back to collecting her own benefit. So here's a little chart to help you understand it. 8% a year he's collected from 66, so he's at that 132 without the cost of living increases, if there are any. She takes her 1,000 and she gets the cost of living for 4 years, so she's at 132%. And again, this is going to show you the income gap that you create, because if you're retiring here, well, what are you doing for money? So the strategy sounds great, but what are we doing for money while we're waiting? Okay, deciding the optimal time to file for Social Security benefits, learning how to maximize an individual and a couple Social Security benefits. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'm going to show you a little bit more in a minute, is because usually when we do the end of these events, everybody wants to come up front and answer questions, which is not a bad thing, but it's just impossible to answer all the questions. So I would ask you to fill out the evaluation form. Basically grade us. If David did a lousy job, you want to let him know. If Mike did a good job, you want to let him know. If you're interested in the analysis, we'll do that for you. That's our commitment to being here. If not, that's okay, just grade us. But if you are interested, you'll have to put some information there on how we can contact you, whether it's email, phone number, whatever you're comfortable with. So why don't you take a minute or two to do that. We'll collect those, and then I'll finish up the presentation for you. Yep.
What year did they start all this?
Hey, what year? He's the historian. What year did they start Social Security?
No, what year they started all this?
All these strategies?
Yes.
They've been around forever. They just didn't tell you.
You got screwed.
I spoke to your wife earlier.
Another question.
Yep. Yeah, I'll come back to this.
You know how they used to send you paper Social Security benefit?
No.
And now you have to go online.
But every 5 years, they'll send you a paper.
Is that trustworthy?
Yep. The other side's good. Can it be hacked? Yeah. Is the information accurate? Yeah. I use it for myself. So if you just take a minute to fill that out, we'll collect it, and then we'll end up with another 8 or 10 slides. Some more good information coming. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
File, when you do that, the file and switch. So in essence, what you're, first of all, you have to get full retirement age to do it? The file and switch?
File and suspend?
Yeah. Okay. So then in essence, what you're doing is, you're accruing all that money.
Yep.
And in case you need it. So
For an individual or for a married couple?
Individual.
Yeah.
So you're accruing that money in case you need it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't need it, and then you start at 70, you're starting at the higher benefits.
The 132 plus whatever cost of
Right.
living.
So if you take it though, let's say you take it when you're 68 and you need the money, then you're then locked into where you are at the 68 going forward?
No, you're locked in back to 66. They're going to calculate your benefit back from age 66, but give you all the money you didn't collect.
So they gave you the money I didn't collect, and what do I get going forward?
Nothing.
So you've given up the rest of your money?
No, you get the benefit from when you were age 66 going forward. So they pay you 2 years that you didn't get paid,
Correct.
and your benefit is based on the age of 66.
Forever going forward.
Plus cost of living is going forward.
Right, but you never get the,
No.
okay.
No, it's just a way to leverage some asset if you need it. Because there's not a lot of strategies for individuals unless their spouse is deceased or if they were divorced. That's kind of the only strategy for an individual.
your spouse is going to always earn less than half of your benefit,
Right.
my benefit, is it possible for them to always stay 50% of?
It happens sometimes, yeah, because the spouse didn't earn much, stayed home with kids, and yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you, I'm sorry, but if you fill them, hey Dave, if you fill them out, if you'd all pass it to your right, he'll collect them, and then I'll finish, because there's quite a bit more information.
But can I ask you just on surviving? I died, my wife collected when she was 62, she still gets mine no matter what.
See, that's another great point, which I didn't spend a lot of time on. If you use some of these tactics, and I explained this to a couple earlier, if you both collect, if you just, yeah, you can actually put them up. If you both collect at age 62, let's assume the benefit's $1,500 each, okay? And one of you die, what happens? Does anybody know what happens? You get the higher of the two benefits. You don't keep them both. So to this gentleman's question, which is a good question, is just by using those delay tactics, in terms of survivorship, you might even be better off. So if I have a couple at 62 and they both claim, one's $1,500, the other one's $1,800. Well, they're getting the money early, and unfortunately, one dies early. So now the survivor gets $1,800. Had they delayed, one of those benefits could have been as high as $3,000 or $3,500. If you were the survivor, which one do you want, the $1,800 or the $3,500? So there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just about how much money you get out of it. In terms of survivorship, again, disparity. If I have a male that's 69 and the wife is 62, well, men don't live as long. So there's a lot to it. Good question, so.
What hours are you dealing with here?
Yeah, well, you put the hours on the bottom there. There's a
How
little.
late do you call? I mean, how late is it?
Call you at midnight if you want. I don't sleep a lot.
Can you do a filing suspend at 62?
No, remember, you'd be back at that deeming benefit. So it looks like file and suspend, but you're locked into your benefit plus the additional they give you to catch up to 50% of your spouse. But then you're locked in at that amount, other than cost of living. You can never go back to yours. Sometimes it is appropriate if there's such a huge disparity in benefits. Sometimes you want to get that early.
David said that, or when it was stated, Connecticut tax is so strict. Is it calculated in the same way at the federal level? The same amount of income and stuff?
Ordinary income is how it's calculated. Anytime your Social Security becomes taxed, it's considered ordinary income.
So if only 50% is taxed for federal, that same 50% would be the amount taxed for the state.
For the state. Is that right, Dave? The amount taxed on the state level is the same percentage. So 50% of my federal benefit is going to be taxed for federal purposes? Yeah. But then it's considered ordinary income, whatever your tax bracket is. Okay, did you guys get a chance to pass that down so I can finish up for you? You just send it down. You know what, if you're more comfortable, we can grab it from you.
To the right?
To the right would be the easiest.
That's your left.
Or you could
That's right.
That's right. If it's more comfortable for you, you can put it upside down on the table if you like, or I'll tell you what, I'll stand at each aisle and you can just pass it down. Because last time, we waited till the end and everybody came up to the front. That was impossible. Okay, is that it? Yes, correct. Yeah, if you need a pen down there. Thank you. Here you go, pen. Okay, if there's any left at the end, you can, when you get up, you can put it face down on the table if you'd like. Okay. By the way, what I failed to mention is we don't spend a lot of time at the workshops. Sometimes you want to have a tax analysis done. If you have a CPA, you do your own taxes, or a good accountant, you want to understand where these benefits come into play, because there was a couple questions on how much of it is taxable. Most of you in the room should assume 85% of it's going to be taxable as ordinary income. So what happens? So I have $50,000 in income in retirement. It could be annuity income, rental properties, it could be consultant, whatever you want to call it. And now I just added my Social Security. Did that affect my tax bracket? Could, right? So what I tell people is if you don't need the benefit, why do you want to pay more taxes? Just about everybody in the room probably has a 401k or an IRA. Why do you contribute to it? They allow you to do it pre-tax, right? Well, that's what they allow you to do too. They're telling you you'll make 8% on your money if you wait. So who has an investment that guarantees 8%? But you all invest into pre-tax accounts, which that's a whole nother conversation because at 70 and a half, the IRS is waiting for you. They want you to blow up those accounts as big as you can because they're going to get theirs at 70 and a half. Required minimum distribution. So who thinks taxes are going up in the future as opposed to down? Right. So they're waiting for it. So there's a lot to Social Security. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about where this comes in retirement planning, in terms of retirement. So what sits on top of your stool is basically your expenses. This has been tried and tested. This has been around since I've been around and longer than that. And so basically this is you in retirement. And what sits on top of your stool is your obligations in retirement. Call them your expenses, whatever you want to call them. And there's something that's attached to the top of the stool. It's called inflation, right? Things cost more. So 20 years from now, if my expenses are $4,000 a month, more than likely they're going to be $8,000 a month. And when you tell that to people, they say, it's not possible. Just figure out what you paid for a car 20 years ago. So one of the legs to retirement potentially for most people is Social Security. So if there's two of you, you put 2 legs of Social Security in there. Again, another reason why you want to think about the survivorship benefit as well. In the center, if you're fortunate enough, I tell this at a lot of my workshops for the people who are my age and older. You tell your grandchildren, when I drove around the car, we used to have this big box in the back of the car, and we used to stick this big thing in the machine. It was called an 8-track tape. That's how we used to listen to music. And then we came out with a cassette tape. Then, got a little older, there was this big box on my TV. We used to stick this other big thing in it. It was called a VCR. Couldn't find a place to get the movies. Well, pensions fall in that category. For a lot of people, there are no pensions. But if you do have one, you're fortunate because it's part of your retirement leg. And then the last is your personal savings. So you need to understand conceptually where Social Security comes in. For some people, it's not as important. Maybe a reason to defer. For other people, it holds up the stool. A couple of the risks: longevity, inflation, healthcare, medical risks, market risk, and depletion of savings. Now, this is interesting, and I actually just learned a lesson myself the other day. Here's a life expectancy chart. So if you said to people, the odds here for a male to make it to 85 is 31.6%, women 46.1. Well, I got a new client the other day, and she is 82 and her husband's 89. So you know what they said? How much longer are we going to go? Well, the life expectancy for her at 82 is 99 now. So people focus on this. Well, life expectancy is 83 for a male. But if you make it to 83, your life expectancy is a lot higher. So it was kind of an eye-opener for me. That has something to do with Social Security again. When do I take it? How long am I going to live? CNBC, medical bills are the biggest cause for bankruptcies in the U.S. Real quickly, you need to be aware of this. Inflation. Good news right here. Long-term inflation, 3.22%. Social Security is going to keep up. Cost of living, that's what we keep talking about. Make sure your other legs of your retirement are keeping up with that as well. Otherwise, you lose purchasing power. This is a great slide. This is called market risk. So we talk about Social Security in terms of risk. Market risk, this is basically the stock market, the S&P, from 99 to 2012. This is someone who's withdrawing 5% of their money, who they think they're going to do it for the rest of their life. Unfortunately, if you retired in 99 and you took out $50,000, based on all the gyrations for the last 13 years, you're down at 333.
Is 3% a better amount?
There was a great study that was also done by CNBC in early 80s. It was just completed. And the assumption was you could take 4 to 5% of your money and never outlive it, and 82% of the people went broke. Depends where your money's placed. Depends where your money's placed. But I say lower, but, yeah, and time, where your money is. Retirement planning, Social Security, so it's unaffected by the market fluctuations. So all that was happening for the last 14 years, your Social Security, according to David, remember David said that, is protected. Doesn't have anything to do with the market though. It's inflation adjusted, that's what we call cost of living. Tax advantage income, for most people, no. Backed by a government promise, who feels good about that? You take that out there. Provide lifetime income, and that is true. Choosing the right election may be the most important decision. So just want you to understand where it comes in context of retirement, taxation, but it is an important decision, and once you elect it after 12 months, it's yours, so hopefully that helps.
Are you having this seminar again in the area?
Yes, we're going to be in Coscob, in Fairfield Library, in the Greenwich YMCA, and in Wilton, and also in the Shalom Temple in Norwalk.
How are you advertising? It's just by that card.
It's really up to them. Yeah. If you'd like the dates, we'll give them to you in a minute.
When you call, what's my caller ID going to say so I actually pick up the phone?
It's funny you said that because it says USA Financial and Tax Services. And some people have thought it was the IRS, so they don't think it's the phone. Taxes, I'm not taking that. If you have any questions, thank you.